hand it over to Barbara.
Very much. Just so I can familiarise myself with the audience, are there any designers here? Any product designers, product development managers, anybody like that? Anybody working in sustainability? Oh, one. Anybody in sustainability? No. Okay. Well, maybe you're just hiding. Just a bit about myself. I'm an industrial designer and I specialise in sustainable product design. I've worked in sustainable manufacturing, lean and green, energy efficiency on the factory floor, and most recently I rolled out the product sustainability project program for a consumer electronics firm called Logitech. So I'm here to talk about design for sustainability, and a large part of my career I have been explaining or promoting the fact that sustainability is good for design all around, and that it adds value to the design process. So I'll explain a little bit about what design for sustainability is all about, why you would apply it, how it adds value to the organisation outside of just environmental impact, and then how you would roll out such a strategy. So first of all, what is for design for sustainability, and what kind of data and information can it provide? So a lot of people when they think of sustainable design, they jump to solutions. They think about recyclable materials, design for repairability, recyclability, and so on and so forth. However, in my experience, if you don't know what your problems are, then you are far too quick to jump to solutions. So design sustainability needs to be rooted in the product life cycle, the total life cycle impact of the product. So you start with life cycle thinking. Essentially, just to take a mobile phone as an example, you have raw materials extraction as the first life cycle phase. This goes right back to the mine where you get your metals, where you get the oil that makes your plastics, water consumption, the whole shebang. Your manufacturing processes, your logistics and packaging, the use by the consumer of the product, and the eventual disposal, how much of the product is disposed of through landfill, recovered for reuse, and so on and so forth. So you're taking that holistic approach, looking at not just the use of the product, not just the manufacture of it, but the whole life cycle of the product. Life cycle assessment then is probably considered the most comprehensive and most trustworthy way of assessing the total life cycle impact of a product. It's a scientific process used by designers. Essentially, when you do a life cycle assessment, you will get you will quantify all the different environmental impacts going on, all the inputs that are required for your product to exist in terms of water, energy, oil, metals, plastics, and so on and so forth, as well as all the outputs to the environment. So that's emissions to air, emissions to water, pollution, waste, and so on and so forth. And this is just to give you a very basic overview. Life cycle assessment can get very complicated if there's anybody in the audience who actually knows about it. And essentially what you'll end up with is a quantification of your environmental impact. So you get something that perhaps looks a little bit like this. So intuition might tell you, oh, the phone is made out of metal, that's going to be high impact, or I'm recharging my phone every day for 3 years or so on, that's going to be a high impact. But this will give you the actual data behind it. A lot of companies will jump to packaging. Packaging is very customer facing. Let's put a nice, recyclable box around the mobile phone, and everyone will think we've done something about sustainability. Packaging doesn't come into it when you're talking about mobile phones as an example. Different if you're talking about food. In any case, the point I'm trying to make is that life cycle assessment is a way of busting the myths and avoiding your environmental intuition. So it gives you data. It gives you data like this. This is an example of a computer mouse. 82% raw materials. So if you were to think about packaging, or if you were to think about the use of a computer mouse, you're really looking at the wrong problems in that situation. And just to contrast that, this is for a Bluetooth speaker, completely different profile. So this is all about recharging the battery, mainly, as well as the raw materials, which are always a major thing. 22% transport in this case, because it's quite a heavy product, and this product was being air-shipped. So rather than being shipped by ocean, made a massive difference to the environmental impact, or should I say, where the impacts are occurring on a life cycle stage. Now, if you get this kind of information as a designer, it doesn't tell you enough. It tells you, okay, what you need to think about vaguely. But what you really need to know is, sorry, I'm actually going to skip that one for the moment. What you need to know is your resource intensities. This gives you a risk profile as well. And this is where the designers get interested. This is giving you, I think this was for a mouse as well, a rechargeable wireless mouse. This gives you which components are contributing to environmental impact. So now you're getting into the nitty-gritty. Now you know, well, if we take out so many screws, we can quantify exactly what impact that's going to make. You can also use life cycle assessment. Say if you take the example of taking away screws and you're replacing it for snap fits, or maybe you're integrating parts all into one part, one injection molded part. If you can't get back in there to replace the battery, that's going to have an impact further down the line. It's going to impact your customer if they can't replace batteries. Sorry, I mixed up my slides. But going back to this slide here. Adding value outside of the environmental impact is looking at waste. This is where lean manufacturing people tend to pay attention. There's waste all the way along the value stream. What life cycle assessment and what sustainable design practice can help you do is reduce the waste, quantify the waste, and help you to save money for the company, essentially. And also in a more long-term point of view. Anything that's wasted in the supply chain at any stage in the life cycle is eventually going to have an indirect cost in terms of resources that are in short supply. If your price of oil goes up, the price of plastic goes up. If there's water shortages in China or in California where you're manufacturing your product, that's going to have an impact to the cost of your parts. Some more quantification for you. This is for a Bluetooth speaker that weighed 1 kilo. The eventual product ended up weighing 1 kilo, and yet 14 tons of water is used in the production of that Bluetooth speaker. Obviously, a lot of it is wasted. You need pure, ultra pure water to make chips, and there was something like 4 or 5 different chips in this speaker. 7 kilograms of oil to make what ended up being about half a kilo, or not even that, of plastic. All sorts of metals, and then there was a pollution element as well in the life cycle. Essentially, these are all giving you a picture of the risk profile of your organization. So why? So just to kind of get into, and I'll speed it up, I don't know where my 5 minutes. So, is it? Okay, thank you. So reducing costs is an obvious one, especially I've done a lot of projects in energy efficiency. Anywhere you can reduce energy is going to have a direct impact on cost. Anywhere you can reduce material use is going to have a direct impact on cost. So that's a fairly obvious one. If you use life cycle thinking as a cost reduction method, then you're avoiding knocking on your costs to other parts of the other life cycle stages of the product. So making one part cheaper, having a negative impact on another part, for example. An obvious one is using a rechargeable battery as opposed to disposable batteries. It drives up the cost per unit, but it reduces the cost for your customer, and it makes life a lot more convenient to them. So if that's something your customer is willing to pay for, then it's a convenience that they will entertain. And it also helps you reduce costs in your supply chain. So if you can talk to your suppliers about certain wastes that are happening in the supply chain, the cost of certain resources that are becoming more expensive, like the price of copper or tin and so on and so forth, then you can make better, more informed decisions with your suppliers. I think I've kind of explained the risk exposure already. When you can quantify your exposure to risk in terms of water, oil, so on and so forth, conflict minerals might be of interest to your company. Then you can say, well, we need to roll out a strategy on this particular area. So you know how to strategize to reduce your risk. Enhancing your brand. If environmental impact matters to your customers or your shareholders, which is increasingly becoming so, then obviously you can use it to differentiate your product. Supply chain traceability linked to risk again is a big part of it. Differentiate, I've mentioned. And then if product labeling is something that your organization is sensitive to, you have to label what environmental impact your product has. Life cycle assessments can do that, and therefore increase the value of your product essentially. And if you do roll out cost-saving projects, which nearly all companies do, you can translate that to environmental impact using something like life cycle assessment, and then roll that out. Aren't we wonderful? We've saved all this That's probably should be a byproduct rather than your main strategy. So solving the right problems, as I mentioned, mushroom packing is a great idea, or recyclable packaging is a great idea, but is it your big problem? Efficient batteries, I think I've mentioned that, instead of rechargeable batteries, adds huge convenience for your customer. Repairability, and that's why I have the picture of the Doc Marten. We all remember our pair of Doc Martens, didn't we? I still have mine since I was 14 or something. They're still wearable, they last forever, and that builds trust in your brand. And it means that, if my black pair are still doing me fine, I'm going to buy a red pair, perhaps. It builds trust, and this is becoming more and more important. However, also, and I might be kind of showing my sort of sustainability bubble that I live in here, but customers are becoming cleverer. So if you release your product with fancy packaging, they realize that's not the big problem. They realize that electronic waste is a major, major problem. And they realize that you need to be able to quantify and show that you're actually being strategic in what you're going after. So how? Okay, so eco-efficiency is a method developed by BASF, chemical company, and it basically links environmental impact to product value. So all companies are about creating value for the customer. They create profit and they create growth, but essentially what they do is create value. The strategy of any organization should be to create as much value for the least environmental impact. So this is where you start to get aligned with the business goals of your organization. The more value you can create, the less impact you make, the better. What this helps you do is select the correct projects, essentially, but it also helps you to benchmark one product against another. So on the right-hand side, or on the left-hand side, you have the environmental impact, and then you translate those into other benefits for your organization. Most sustainability projects have a big value outside of just environmental impact. This is just some ideas. You're talking in value, you're talking about performance, making the product perform better, last longer, address the needs of your customer, increasing lifespan perhaps, health and safety, reducing pollution in the communities where your customers live, reducing waste, which is inconvenient for the customer to get rid of. And then on the reduced impact side, you have materials and waste, total carbon footprint, and obviously end of life. Am I getting on? So just to finish up, I suppose, on this, back to eco-efficiency. When I said about benchmarking products against each other. So product development teams will be familiar with the life cycle of their product from a marketing point of view. What this graph shows is that when you when you link environmental impact to revenue per unit, and that's how I've decided to measure value in this particular case, what you'll end up with is products down in the bottom quadrant, low revenue, low impact products. Every company needs to have a few stack them high, sell them cheap kind of products. They shouldn't be producing a huge amount of environmental impact if you know what you're doing. Then every company is going to have their fancy new products, their luxury high-end products, high revenue, high impact generally speaking, because they've got high glass paint finishes, or they've got extra features or extra buttons, which drives up the environmental impact. Essentially what you want to do is get everything up into the top left-hand corner, high revenue and low impact. Now where your opportunities lie is in the bottom quadrant. So this is where product E is here. This is generally speaking, and in my experience nearly all the time, this is your product that was fancy once upon a time, but a long time ago. It's old-fashioned, it's going out of date, therefore your sales team have had to cut the value of it, they've had to cut the price, 2-for-1 offers, blah, 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 and it's becoming outdated. This product is ripe for sustainability projects because it's just about to get redesigned, and then it will jump into that top quadrant. So if it gets a discontinued product and your company has to put something new on the market, that's your opportunity to get involved early in the design process, and hopefully instead of ending up where product G is, you'll end up pushing it a little bit further towards the left-hand side. Okay?
Thanks very much, Barbara.